everyone. Hobo Yeti here. I want to talk about, the best place to find to be homeless, the best city, the best state. Thinking about this, it's got me thinking about all the places that I've been homeless in the course of my life. It started when I was 20, about 35 years ago. And the thing is once you allow the option to be homeless, it becomes an option, whereas normally it wouldn't be, right? Most people don't even consider it, but once you've been homeless before, it enters into, well, I can't pay rent this month, I could go stay with a friend, let's just go live in a tent for a little bit, Although up until now, it hasn't been a long-term thing. It's usually been for 1 to 3 months, maybe 6 months. I did that walk across America. That doesn't really count in my calculations for, living out, living in the same area, being homeless. But anyway, I'd like to talk about the different places that I've been homeless. So I guess Utah. I was homeless in Utah for about a month in Provo Canyon. Basically, all of Utah is off limits for being homeless. There are homeless there, typically in the city, but it's desert, high desert, and very dry. It gets very cold there. It gets very hot there. Of places to go to be homeless, that is pretty much the bottom of my list. It's got some good things there, but mostly, unless you're LDS, Mormon or whatever, it's not really, and they have like a whole system to take care of their own. But if you're not included in that, and even getting food stamps there was very difficult. I applied and I think they approved for like $16 or something like that. They're very hard on people trying to get by. Albuquerque, I would say 20, 30 years ago, I was homeless in Albuquerque. I was living in a car, and same thing, high desert, low desert. It was, the weather was okay. I'm just not a fan of the desert. There's no place to really set up a tent, unless you want to go into the canyon up on the mountain or something like that. Sometimes you can find a good little nook, but for the most part, anything with desert, I'm against being homeless there. There are homeless folk there, obviously, that are living in, living on the streets, whatever. That's not my preference. I prefer to find a place that's got some woodland, and, find a nice little woodland spot. And I think as I've gotten older, I just don't want, if I'm going to be homeless and or even places that, like, I just don't see the desert is where I want to be. Early on, my first experience being homeless was when I was like 21, and I was in northeast Texas, a little town called Dennison, Texas. Is on the border of the Red River in Oklahoma, and that was actually a pretty good spot. I was homeless there for about a month and a half. I hitchhiked there. It was my first hitchhiking experience from Texarkana to Dennison, and that was fun. I ended up staying, in a wooded area outside town. There's plenty of places like that there. Had a creek. I was able to get food stamps. I was able to live. And it was my first experience, so that's always got a tender spot for me. The weather's okay. When I was younger, I was able to handle the changes in the weather much better. If it got to be 100, I could handle that. Now I would just die. But I guess the one thing I notice about Texas that's not pretty much all Texas, or East Texas anyway, is everything is fenced in. Like, somebody owns, like, an 1/18 of an acre, they're going to fence it in, put some barbed wire around it. And people, they're not very cool with the homeless there. Anyway, let's see. Going back, I guess 8 years maybe. I was homeless in Sarasota, Florida. So I've got family in Florida, but I did not want to, impose myself upon them. So I went to Sarasota, and it was okay. Sarasota was okay. It was hot. I went there during the middle of the winter because I was originally, in Utah where it's very cold. So I decided to go down to Sarasota, and Sarasota was it was okay. It's kind of one of those retirement communities. The thing that I hate about Florida is everything's like there's not really. I mean, they do have public transit, but it's not very good, and it's not something you can count on a regular basis. They have it's very humid, lots of bugs, lots of snakes, like armadillos, possums, jungle type environment. Very humid. Did I say humid already? It's very humid down there. It's horrible. But the jobs were okay, I guess. I found a 24-hour fitness, and I set up my camp behind it in a little strip mall, and that was okay. It was, if you can handle the weather, that's a great place to be. You're not going to find any place next to the beach, but inland of the beach, you'll find something that'll work for you. Let's see, Suffolk. I was in Suffolk, Virginia, a couple of years ago, and basically the whole southeastern part of the country is okay to be homeless. Louisiana, Mississippi, the Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida. They're all good places. You can find little spots to be homeless, and you don't. Well, I'll go over specifics after this, but overall, those are good spots. They have a low cost of living, but they pay crap. So consider that. But people are more in those southern states. They're more likely to be compassionate towards the homeless, or at least not evil towards the homeless. Let's see, Vancouver, Washington, across the border from Portland. Obviously I've been to Portland, and Portland's good. I like the Northwest just because the weather, yes, it rains 9 months out of the year for the most part, but the temperature is good for me. Also, the cost of living is very high, but the pay, minimum wage is good. Minimum wage is one of the higher ones in the nation, so that's good. So even if you get a minimum wage job, you're still going to be able to make some decent money as compared with living on the East Coast or Southeast area. You got to contend with the rain. That's kind of a pain in the butt. In Vancouver compared to Portland, Portland has like little areas of wooded, just interspersed throughout the city and the metro area. Whereas in Vancouver, it's more so designed on a grid, so there's less of those spots. You can still find them. I found one that was actually close to the highway in Vancouver, South Vancouver, in this, it was hard to get in and out of, though, because, you don't want to be walking through, want to be homeless walking through a community, a residential community. You don't want to draw attention, so... but I'm sure there are other areas up there that will work for you. Let's see, Franklin or Johnson City, Tennessee. Franklin's actually south of Nashville, and then Johnson City's kind of on the border of North Carolina and Tennessee. Both these are decent places to be. Supposedly, the last couple years, it's been outlawed to be homeless in those. In Tennessee, But that doesn't stop people from being homeless, because if you got no home, you got no option. It's not like I could say, well, I'm going to move over here, you know. You know, lots of bugs. It gets hot, muggy, nasty. Surprisingly, Tennessee is very, very humid. But other than that, they've got Johnson City, Tennessee had a small homeless population and resources, not a lot, and they were hard to find places to kind of snuggle up into, especially if you wanted it something close to town. So you had to be very creative. Like, I found this place that was like a little small ditch valley thing that had a creek in it. On the one side was a state road, on the other side was like a strip mall type thing, but it was wooded, and during the summer, you know, nobody could see me really going into it, and also I was going down, so that when I was in my tent, I was right near the creek or whatever, the stream, and looking up. You know, people don't naturally look down when they're driving by. Anyway, it was okay. Wilkesboro, North Carolina, similarly, that's on the other side of the border from Tennessee. A smallish town, had all the main things, you know, had a Burlington, had a Walmart, had a fair amount of fast food places. I had actually come to the end of my walk across America, and that's where I realized that my knees and my back and everything was really messed up at that point. And I don't know, it was a good enough place. I wouldn't really want to do it in the winter time there, but there was plenty of places for me to hole up. Initially, I was under a bridge. The problem was there was a river, a decent-sized river below the bridge, and I'm up under the eaves and stuff. And I woke up and see people like they were tubing down the river. It didn't really seem like a tubing down the river kind of river. It was a little bit more wild, so I was like surprised. But people are more outdoorsy out there. So, but it was okay. And I guess, the last one is Portland. And Portland is, I mentioned that, similar to Vancouver, up in the Pacific Northwest. Sorry. For me, it's just better. There's a lot of resources. Like if you want to go somewhere, no matter how far out you are, you could be in Oregon City, you could be in Sherwood, you could be in the Troutville or whatever it's called, and Beaverton, Hillsboro. Good metro area, and you can access it through the MAX, which is the transit system, the trains, and then the buses. And so however far out you are, you have access to civilization, and they've got plenty of libraries, plenty of homeless resources. As far as the perfect city or the perfect place to be homeless, I would suggest, if you're doing homelessness like I am, which is you want to be away from, you don't want to be lumped in with other homeless people. You want to be kind of out on your own kind of thing in a nice little wooded area and stuff. It's really about, I guess it's about like a smaller city outside of a larger city, like a metro area, something that's not terribly residential. They're building cities now where it's just all residential, preferably close to maybe not industrial, but stores and things like that, because you still want to be close to all the things that make your life easier. You want to be close to a Walmart, a grocery store, the bus route, the library, pantries. You want to be able to get to those fairly easily, stuff like that. But yet you want to be able to be far enough out into the woods or whatever that you're not really noticed. Something where you can kind of disguise your campsite, something that's easy to get into and out of without being noticed, and just really you know, that all four seasons are going to be comfortable in there. And I don't know. That's my it's kind of where my setup is, my ideal setup. But um, hopefully that information helps a little bit for you. I'd like to know. I know there's a lot of homeless folks and hobos that are following my channel. I would like to know where you guys are set up and what are the best and worst things about those places, and how you're set up, how you're getting along. You know, let me know in the comments. I hope your road's a good one, and if you're homeless, I hope it doesn't suck for you. Take care.